Today, we're turning our attention away from the Cold War battlefields abroad and shining a light on the conflict that played out on American soil, not with bombs or soldiers, but with fear, accusations, and political power. As the United States positioned itself as a global defender of democracy, it also wrestled with a deepening internal crisis. The fear of communism didn't just dominate foreign policy, it reached into homes, workplaces, and government offices across the country. In today's video, we explore the Cold War at home, a time when fear and suspicion threatened the very freedoms America claimed to defend. Let's get started. In the aftermath of World War II, the global political landscape changed dramatically. The Soviet Union emerged as a formidable superpower, and the communist takeover of China in 1949 sent shockwaves through the American public. Suddenly, the threat of communism didn't feel distant, it felt dangerously close to home. Fueled by reports of Soviet espionage and expansion, some Americans began to believe that communists were trying to subvert or destroy the American political system from within. Others pushed back, arguing that measures being taken to root out communism were themselves a threat to American civil liberties and values. This fear led to an unprecedented internal crackdown, one that would come to define a darker chapter of American democracy. The search for communists began in earnest with the creation of the House Un American Activities Committee, or HUAC, in 1938. Originally established as a temporary investigative unit, HUAC soon became a permanent and powerful force. During the late 1940s and early 1950s, it targeted suspected communist influence in Hollywood, leading to the blacklisting of actors, writers, and directors, many of whom never worked again. FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover was a key supporter of HUAC's work. However, critics accused Hoover of overstepping, arguing that his anti communist activities often violated the civil rights of the very citizens he claimed to protect. In 1940, Congress passed the Smith Act, which made it a crime to advocate for the violent overthrow of the government or to belong to groups that did. This law became a critical tool for prosecuting communists. One of the most notable cases was Dennis v. the United States in 1951. Eugene Dennis, the General Secretary of the Communist Party in the United States, was convicted along with 10 others under the Smith Act. The Supreme Court upheld their convictions, signaling a willingness to limit speech in the name of national security. President Harry S. Truman furthered these efforts in 1947 by launching a loyalty program, which ordered background checks on federal employees. Thousands were investigated, and many were dismissed if their loyalty was seen as doubtful, even without clear evidence of wrongdoing. Even renowned physicist Robert Oppenheimer, who led the Manhattan Project to develop the atomic bomb, found himself under scrutiny. After voicing opposition to the hydrogen bomb and being connected to people with questionable loyalties, Oppenheimer faced a government hearing. Though he was declared a loyal citizen, he lost his security clearance and was barred from future government research. In 1948, suspicion turned into spectacle with the Alger Hiss case. Hiss, a former advisor to President Roosevelt, was accused by ex communist Whittaker Chambers of having been a Soviet spy in the 1930s. Although Hiss denied the allegations, a young California congressman named Richard Nixon took up the case. Hiss was eventually convicted not of espionage, but of perjury. Nixon's aggressive pursuit of the case turned him into a national figure and gave Republicans ammunition to claim that the Roosevelt and Truman administrations had been far too soft on communism. Into this politically charged atmosphere stepped Senator Joseph McCarthy of Wisconsin. In 1950, he claimed to have a list of known communists working within the State Department. Over the next 4 years, McCarthy launched a relentless campaign of accusations against government officials, intellectuals, and even members of the U.S. Army. What made McCarthyism unique and dangerous was that McCarthy made these allegations without evidence. His method of making sweeping, unproven claims destroyed lives and careers while fueling public paranoia. In 1950, Ethel and Julius Rosenberg, along with Morton Sobel, were arrested and charged with passing atomic secrets to the Soviet Union during World War II. After a highly controversial trial, the Rosenbergs were convicted of espionage and sentenced to death. Despite protests and questions about the fairness of the trial, they were executed in 1953. Sobel received a prison sentence. That same year, Congress passed the McCarran Internal Security Act, targeting individuals deemed threats to U.S. security. 2 years later, the McCarran-Walter Act of 1952 restricted immigration from communist-dominated countries, particularly in Asia and Europe. Although President Truman vetoed the bill, Congress overrode his veto, pushing the legislation into law. McCarthy's unchecked power finally met resistance in 1954 when he accused the U.S. Army of being infiltrated by communists. The subsequent televised hearings revealed McCarthy's bullying and lack of evidence.
I am getting very, very weary of sitting here and acting as though we're playing some little game. In this committee's activities may well determine whether this nation will live or die. Covering up communists and traitors, not dead ones but live ones.
Do you not know, Senator?
Don't pull that on me, sir.
Don't you know?
Don't pull that on me.
Don't suggest to me, sir, if you please, that the United States Army is going to cut its own throat by letting communists cut its throat, as you say they may. Don't tell me, sir, that the United States Army doesn't fight communists. You do not have a monopoly, sir, in that field.
Public support for McCarthy collapsed, and in December of that year, the Senate formally censored him for conduct unbecoming of a member. The censure marked the end of the Second Red Scare, but not the end of anti-communist sentiment in America. The tactics used during this time, particularly McCarthy's, were increasingly seen as violations of constitutional rights, such as freedoms of speech and due process. Over time, the term McCarthyism came to symbolize the use of unfair methods, guilt by association, public shaming, and unfounded accusations to silence dissent or opposition. The Cold War at home was a battle not just over ideology, but over the soul of American democracy. While the United States fought against totalitarian regimes abroad, it also struggled with how far it would go to protect itself at home. The legacy of this era reminds us that fear, when unchecked, can become a powerful force capable of undermining the very freedoms it seeks to defend. That's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining me. We'll see you next time.